Well, this is Mike Proctor here with Real Wealth Podcast, and I've got Jason Lansdown. He is the partial owner of the two Westside Chick-Fil-A's here in Wichita, arguably wields the most powerful force in West Wichita, which is oodles and oodles of Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yes.
And many free sandwiches. If you had to take a guess at how many sandwiches you give away per year, where do you think it might land?
Oh, my word. I honestly couldn't tell you, but it's quite a few.
It's got to be just an amazing amount. And
Yes,
I'm like, how do they keep their doors open with this many free sandwiches going out?
If you have the app, you know.
Okay.
We try to be very assertive with giving away free food through that app.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really a testament to the generosity of Chick-fil-A and Jason. And that's a little bit what I'm excited to talk about today. Not to maybe highlight that too much, but as a framework, as an encouragement. And so here on Real Wealth Podcast, we focus on a couple of main lenses. One is living the best life possible with the time we have left, and also to highlight the entrepreneurial side, the getting started, what went into that. Chick-fil-A is a rather unique model where they make it more available to be a franchisee than many others do because of the low entry point, but it's rigorous to qualify, right? How many people apply for it compared to how many actually get it, Jason?
Last I heard was in around 75,000 to 80,000 people every year apply.
And how many are awarded?
Right around 100.
Wow.
So they say statistically it's easier to get into Harvard, Yale, or the CIA than to get selected as a Chick-fil-A operator. So it can be challenging.
Wow.
But it's a great great company to partner with.
Absolutely. So we've got some top brass here, a very rigorous process, more than CIA, Harvard, or Yale. And
I was a lucky one. I don't know how I made it through, but I'm blessed.
Yeah. Well, either way, Jason, you've got two. When did they start allowing people to have two Chick-fil-A's? Because it used to be one, right?
Yeah, it started off with just one, and it's been a while now that they allow people to have more than one. It's still fairly rare, but becoming a bit more common. But yeah, that was really a testament to my team, that the team did a really good job. And when they interview you for the first one, they're interviewing me to see my capacity. When they go through the interview process for the second one, it's really heavily on the team to see the capacity for your systems and your team to be replicated in more than one location. So they did an excellent job.
I would say so. So just to maybe give some perspective, would you mind sharing your story of kind of like the roadmap of from when you got into this and what that's looked like for you and what your experience has been as a Chick-fil-A operator?
Sure. So I'm the owner-operator of the two locations in West Wichita, like you mentioned, the 21st of Mays and Maple and Ridge. And we opened 21st of Mays 10 years ago this August. So prior to that, I'm actually from Wichita. I like to say I'm sort of from Wichita. Grew up bouncing back and forth between Wichita and a small town in southwest Missouri. Basically because my dad worked in the aircraft industry, and so when he had a job, we were in Wichita. And when he did not have a job, we would move back to Missouri and live with my grandparents as a family. So my upbringing was fairly meager. We were pretty poor. We were the poor family that people would donate to at Christmas time. I remember one year, we had the opportunity to go into a Walmart and purchase things that a local community organization funded to give us Christmas gifts that year. So learned early on to appreciate the benevolence of others and the impact that has on people in need, and that had a pretty profound impact on me. So grew up a little bit older and met my wife in high school here in the Wichita area, and she had a very similar upbringing, a meager financial background, and a lot of the challenges that went with that. And she also saw the benefit of how people, helped them through some of those situations, and it had a pretty profound impact on her as well. And so those defining things, put us on a course to have a desire to do that for other people. And as we got married, we would talk and dream about what that would look like and how we would impact others. And we always thought it would be great to own a business to help others and to have a business that would not only provide a service or a product, but then use that business as a vehicle to help others, to be generous, to impact others in a positive way. So we used to think it would be a coffee shop, which is pretty funny because my wife doesn't drink coffee at all. But we would just dream. And the problem was that, we had the dream, but we didn't have the financial resources to do that. It's pretty expensive to start a business on your own. Rather, it doesn't matter if you're starting your own business or doing a franchise, it can be pretty expensive. And we just didn't have the resources at the time. So we held on to that dream, but then kept working regular jobs for many years. And I was on my journey to kind of find or to discern what God's plan was for my life, and reached a point where I realized that I had good intentions for many years. I was trying to find out what God's plan was for my life and trying different careers, trying different jobs, and based on what I thought God would want me to do, based on my skills and my interest, and never had any satisfaction with that, and realized that my intentions were good, but my methods were a bit flawed. That I reached a point where I realized that I just had to ask God, and reached a very humble moment in my life where I said, God, I'm an idiot. I'm not a very smart person, and I just want to serve you. I just want to honor you, and I don't care what it is. I just want to know. And so I prayed that prayer and asked God to show me. And I just said, all I ask is that you make it loud and clear, because I'm not able to discern to see myself. And so instantly I prayed that prayer and started imagining what it would be and how I would find out. And I do believe that God answered that prayer. A number of things happened within probably a 3-day period that made it very clear. It wasn't a big, loud, booming voice out of the sky telling me what to do, but nonetheless, it was very clear. A couple things that happened. One, my mom had called me about an hour after I prayed that prayer, and she lives in Florida, and she had told me that several months prior to that, she had written a letter to Chick-Fil-A saying that she wanted them to open a Chick-fil-A in her hometown, and she wanted to own it. And she was calling to tell me that she was no longer interested in that opportunity. And the reason was that they didn't have a way to, like, they couldn't just put one where she wanted to. They have a real estate team that determines that for her, and so they didn't have any plans to build one there. And they were looking for people who weren't just passively owning a business, but they wanted people to be active in the business. They wanted people who were active in the community. And so all the things that she didn't find interesting really spoke to me and really caught my attention. I was a Chick-fil-A fan. I grew up eating Chick-fil-A here in Wichita when they had them in the malls. And so I was a fan of the product and the company. So yeah, that was the first step. And then one other thing that happened, among others, the very next night, I was laying in bed with my wife. She was sleeping, and I was watching TV and flipped onto a news channel late at night and caught about the last 3/4 of a documentary about Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. And his story just blew me away. He, I thought I grew up poor. He grew up incredibly poor and created this business of Chick-fil-A and used that as a vehicle to help so many people in so many ways, through foster homes to, he was just an incredible philanthropist, and it really inspired me. And I, that night, went and filled out my application to become a Chick-fil-A owner.
Wow. How long was it between when you filled that out and when you got to break ground, or when they told you had won it?
Sure. That was an incredibly long process I could talk about for a long time. The short version, it was about 6 years.
Whoa.
So as you mentioned earlier, it's very rigorous, the vetting process, and a lot of people apply and not many people get accepted. And the average time is about 2 years, and it took me a lot longer than that. So I went through the interview process. They reached a point where they recommended I work in a restaurant for a while. So I did that for about 4 years and ran a restaurant in Kansas City area for a while as a manager or a director. And then I became a corporate employee and helped Chick-fil-A with corporately owned stores for a season and traveled around and did that. And then I became the owner operator of the Chick-fil-A mall, the mall location in Topeka, for about a year. And then that brought us to Wichita finally to open our store in 2012. So it was about a 6 to 7 year process.
Wow. Yeah. And, it's interesting. Miguel Johns was on a couple weeks ago for a moment. I don't know if you've met him before, but he's an entrepreneur in town. They've got a lot of momentum at this point, but it's, however many iterations of his business later, 6 years in the making to get there. And here you are, a franchisee with an operating company that's had a lot of success. And it still took 6 years for them to get you going.
Oh, yeah. And I would do it again in a heartbeat if I had to. It was a long, grueling process and challenging. Looking back now, it's like a little blip on the radar compared to where I am now. And, I had the opportunity to coach people who are going through the process. And in fact, later today, I'll be sitting down with some people who are preparing to interview for it. And I'll be challenging them and reminding them that it is a grueling process and can take a lot of time and take an incredible amount of sacrifice. But if you're the right person and you get selected, it's absolutely worth it.
What drove you as you went through that process? Because 6 years is a long time. It'd be probably kind of easy to give up hope that you're even going to get it. Or when did you know that they were going to let you have a franchise? Was it 6 years in, or was it sooner than that?
I knew at the very end.
Wow.
And not until then.
Holy cow.
And the thing that kept me going was just obedience, because I prayed that genuine prayer, said, God, I don't care what it is. Show me what it is, make it loud and clear, and I will pursue it relentlessly. And I believe that God showed me that, Chick-fil-A was part of my story and his plan for me. I didn't fully understand it at the time, and I certainly at the time didn't realize what would it take to get there. But it was obedience to say, okay, God, you told me this. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go until either I get it or the door closes. And I fully believe that if it ended up being a dead end or a closed door, that something along that journey would have been something I needed, that it would have put me on a different path that God wanted me to do. So,
yeah, I can resonate with that. It's like you don't know where you're headed, but you're going to keep going in the direction you feel like you're called.
Yeah, and it's hard in the moment, but you have to have faith and follow God.
Absolutely. Wow, I didn't realize, 6 years of just like following and obedience. That's amazing. Cool. Well, I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
Switching gears a little bit, question we always ask is, what have you come to find for you is living the best life possible?
I think it's a great question. And as a believer, a follower of Jesus, I think for me, honestly, it's about realizing that my best life isn't about me. It's about my Savior, my Creator. And so as long as I'm honoring Him, living, His will for my life in every way possible, then that's my best life. And that's challenging. And that's a daily grind to really think about, how am I honoring God with my life? How am I being a good steward of everything that He's entrusted to me? Lately, I've been really thinking about my thought life. I just ended 2 days ago a 40-day challenge I did with a lot of my directors, a devotion where we went through a book, and every day we had to read and then comment about it on a text thread. And it was all focused on our thought life and thinking positively, thinking joy-filled thoughts based on Philippians 4:8. And, to guard our thoughts and keep them godly and God honoring. And so that's been a challenge, good challenge, but yeah, just honoring God in everything that we do, whether that's our thoughts or actions. That's living my best life.
What was the study called?
It was a book that we had, like a devotion that was attached to the book. We didn't go through the book. We went through the devotion, and it was 40 days to a joy-filled life.
Cool.
So it was good. There were parts of the book, we didn't all agree with. Just like any book you read, there's like parts like, I don't really, maybe subscribe to that or believe with that. But there was enough in there that really challenged us and was good.
Since this is sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning, a quick question about stewardship. What's your savings philosophy, or how do you decide what to do with your money?
First and foremost, I try to have the mindset and a reminder that everything I have belongs to God, that I'm just a steward of what's been entrusted to me. And so, first and foremost, I try to keep that on my mind and be a good steward and to honor God with what I'm doing, whether that's giving or saving or spending on, necessities or extra stuff. I just try to honor God. And so we certainly save and we have enough savings. I think that's biblical to have savings to be prepared for, your seasons of want. And so we certainly do have that, but we also are very generous. We try to be very generous, and we try to, honor God with our finances, just like we do with any other aspect of our life.
Okay. So, in going back to generosity, I'm going to put a little bit disjointed connection back to the earlier part of what you were saying, because there was a couple moments in my life that I've experienced generosity, totally unearned, kind of out of the blue, and it alleviated. Our kids had quite a bit of medical stuff going on, and so there was a fund connected to a company that we had a connection to, and anyways, we applied for it, and they paid off all of our medical debt.
Wow.
And that was so deeply impactful for me to receive. I can't think of another event in my life, other than, of course, like, studying the Bible or whatever. But I mean, that's head knowledge. But as far as deep impact, it was more of generosity that happened to me than even like giving money or anything else. But it's the receiving side that it feels like there's a vulnerability there and a gratitude there that you just can't replicate any other way.
Yeah, I think it's much easier in those situations because you can realize the power of generosity when you receive it. Just like, I said I did when I was younger, and people would be generous and help us through some challenging situations, and you realize how profoundly impactful that was. And then you have this, often desire to do that for others. And so I do think that's a part of it, but I don't think it's necessary. I think everyone has that opportunity, whether you've never had those seasons of need like that. I think we all have the opportunity to impact. You don't have to be a business owner to be generous, to have an impact on others. It can be, a one-on-one thing that you can do that really has a profound impact on others. My wife and I try to look at it in different arenas. When we look at our generosity, we look at, certainly generosity through the business, whether that's through the free food that you mentioned or through donation requests that we try to help the community with. We also look at generosity through our church and our tithing and our support of our church. But then on top of that, we look at personal generosity and helping people. And I think there's value in each, to have a corporate giving that can be impactful, but then also to, individually give to people, because I think they do resonate differently with different people. So, for example, my wife will often carry money with her for the purpose of giving to people when she feels moved to do so, whether that's finding a family in a grocery store who seem like they're struggling to pay the bills, or a person at the gas station that she encounters. And so she's actually great at seeking those opportunities to serve. And I think the fact that she keeps money in her pocket for those opportunities then trains her to look for those opportunities to help people on an individual one-on-one basis, which I think can be very impactful.
Yeah. And even psychologically, cash is the most difficult thing to give up too, because it's physical, it's in your hand. It's not like you just swipe the plastic thing and move on.
Once again, I think the key is, as a believer, for us to realize that it doesn't belong to us, that it's, we're stewards of what's been entrusted to us, and that everything belongs to God. And when you have that mindset, it really changes your perspective on things. The story I like to tell some people, several years ago, we reached a point in our business where things were a little bit crazy. We were opening our second store, and my wife and I, she primarily handles all the donation requests that we get. And we had a lot on our plate, and so we had to ask someone else in our organization to help us with that for a season. And so I asked this person, I said, listen, I want you to go through the donation requests, filter them out, make some decisions, and then touch base with us on that. And, that person did it for about a year. And at the end of that year, I felt really bad, dumping that burden on them on top of all their other responsibilities. And when we were about ready to take that back, I apologized and said, listen, I'm really sorry that you had to do all that. I'm thankful that you did that, but I'm sorry that, we added that extra burden. And she said something that really stuck with me that, I try to cling to today. She made the comment, she said, it wasn't a burden at all. I loved it. I realized how fun it is to give away money or to give things away when it doesn't belong to you.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And
that's awesome.
And I thought about that. It's like, that's how we should be with our God, that it should be fun. It should be joyful. We should enjoy doing it because it doesn't belong to us. And just like she had this joy of saying, it's great giving people things when it doesn't belong to me, we should have that same mindset.
That is incredible. Yeah, and that does make it a lot easier. Yeah, this is all temporary, and you don't get to take it with you.
Absolutely.
Possessions don't satisfy. Experiences are far more memorable and enjoyable to think back on, and even just the experience of sharing what you've been blessed with. That is great. It's so much fun to give away what's not even yours.
Right.
Absolutely. Maybe just another comment of what I heard you saying. Part of what I heard you saying when you're telling your story of how you got going. Pete Oakes was on a couple of weeks ago, and one of his big things is your platform is your podium.
Right.
And I hear that loud and clear of how you do that with Chick-Fil-A, and even when I go through the drive-through, which might be something we talk about now. I experience that culture through your people, and that there's a culture of just like generosity and from the top down, definitely experience you through your employees for sure.
Well, thank you. We try to hire the right people to accomplish our vision first and foremost. So the vision of my restaurants here in town is to be a place of refuge. And I know it's kind of a simple vision, and it has nothing to do with selling chicken directly, at least. But we believe that we have the opportunity to create a place of refuge for those who encounter our business, and we try to hire people who will help us accomplish that.
Yeah. Well, and it may not even be as much about selling chicken as it is maybe the cow's self-preservation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. By the way, why did they pick dairy cows to...
Just the visual.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because the black and white looks better than a regular cow.
I
know.
right.
And a lot of people outside of the Midwest don't realize that those are actually dairy cows, but yes.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, but talk about COVID-19. You guys reinvented your business model overnight, literally. I mean, it was like, how fast was that? That was within a couple of days. You went from people in the store to double drive-through lines, highly coordinated operations. That was amazing.
It was a challenge. Thank you. But it was a challenge. The funny story, back in 2019, we were talking with corporate about remodeling the restaurant at 21st and Mays, the interior, and sitting down with the crew and talking about it. And then they came to the moment where they were, bracing me a little bit, like, okay, we have to tell you some bad news. And they said, in order to remodel this dining room, which needs to be done, we're going to have to close your dining room for 10 days. And I remember me and some of my directors around the table were saying, no, that's impossible. We can't do that. You look how busy this is. Do you realize what that would do to our business and how our guests respond? It's impossible to close our dining room for 10 days. Let's look at alternatives. And we went through every option and we couldn't find anything. So we were bracing for this catastrophic impact of closing our dining room for 10 days to remodel, and then COVID-19 happened and we closed it for much longer than 10 days. So it definitely gave us a different perspective. We had to very quickly adjust. Once again, the directors on my team did a phenomenal job. We met regularly, sometimes in person, sometimes over Zoom to get game plans. And it wasn't just us, it was every Chick-Fil-A out there trying to do similar things. They did a phenomenal job. They learned a lot. They got thrown into a lot quickly, but their mental agility, was worthwhile.
Yeah. How fast was it between when COVID hit and when you actually got all that going in the
days at the most? I mean, we pivoted pretty quickly. So yeah, I think once COVID-19 first hit, I think the dining rooms closed like 2 or 3 days later. That was a pretty big scramble on what we would do, wouldn't do. And then it came down to then adjusting to how do we do a drive-through only restaurant for a season. And it did last longer than we anticipated, but we learned a lot through that. We actually grew as a business during that season.
Hmm.
Even though we take away, all the dining room, we actually were able to do it in a way where we actually grew as an organization.
In fact, it went so long, I heard that you had to retrain people how to run a dining room.
We did. Once we reopened the dining room, we had people who had never worked in the dining room because they got hired on when we were drive-through only. And that whole level of hospitality, the whole level of running a register on the inside was completely foreign to a lot of our employees. They actually got a little bit spoiled for a while because after we closed the dining room, we tried to make the most of it. And so we put a ping pong table in the dining room so they could have that during the break times. We took our condiment bars and made them snack bars. And so we would go and replenish them with cookies or candy bars or chips. And so, we reopened our dining room and people are like, what happened to the snack bar? It's gone. What happened to the ping pong table, all the fun stuff? So it was a shock to some of them because that's all they knew.
That's pretty funny. And then that they had to grieve the loss of the ping pong table.
Yes.
Probably.
We gave it away to one of the employees. We had a raffle, and so one employee got it, and it went to their youth group, I believe.
Nice. Very cool. So one thing I've noticed is a lot of times mentors play a key role in how we grow, how we develop, who we become. Can you share a little bit about mentors in your life that you've learned from and maybe how they've impacted you?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to have a lot of people who've impacted me over the years, even from when I was a teenager, and had some men at a church who poured into me and put me on a different path, to other Chick-fil-A operators who, as I was learning, I had an operator in Kansas City area who I worked for who gave me opportunity to learn the business a lot and grow in that way. I've had Chick-fil-A corporate employees, business consultants or operation leads who poured into me and challenged me and developed me. Currently, I'm in a men's Bible study that we meet every Wednesday night, and it's a group of Christian businessmen. All of them are business owners or business leaders, and all of them are, successful men. And I'm the youngest in the group, and it's been an opportunity for me to learn from those who have more life experience than me and more business experience than me to number one, know that we all, struggle with very similar things, but opportunity to learn from them and grow. So I've been blessed to have different people in different arenas of my life pour into me.
It is helpful. I'm in a group of other business owners that we pulled together, and we meet together monthly. And one of our focuses is how do we better minister through our business. But yeah, it is helpful to have that like-mindedness.
It's just helpful to know you're not alone and have other people challenge you and push you. When you try to do it by yourself is when it becomes problematic.
Yep, it's easy to get tripped up when you're trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
How do you balance work and home life? You got a lot going on. Presumably, it'd be challenging. How do you keep that straight?
Yeah, I prefer looking at it as a work-life blend and not a work-life balance because, balance, means that they should be equal at all times. And that's just not reality, especially if you're a business owner. And so there are seasons where, rightfully so, you have to lean in on one more than the other. Certainly early on in the process of opening our first store and opening our second store, we had to lean in a little bit more on the business because that's what it needed. But then, as the business matured, then we could, make some adjustments. It's like having a kid. When you have a child in diapers, they need a little bit different level of attention than maybe a high schooler or a college student.
Absolutely.
And so you still show them attention, but the cadence is a little bit different. So we look at work-life blend for not only myself, but for my directors, my business leaders. And it's just important to kind of constantly evaluate and making sure that, you're on the right side of things, that it's not, it's really easy to get over-absorbed in one or the other and lose sight of that. And so, having regular checks with the business, with your family, to making sure that, that everything's on course.
So you check in with your family regularly to ask them, hey, are we How are we doing here?
We try to. I think earlier on we had to do that more than now. I think now we have a better feel
Mm-hmm.
for everything, but certainly earlier on we have to, have those conversations. In fact, I had the opportunity to coach new owner operators for Chick-fil-A, and that's one thing I always coach them to have regular touch-ins with their spouse, because it's really easy to, especially the first year of your business, to feel like you're winning in life and things are going great and you're failing at home, and your family has a different perspective of it. So to have these regular check-ins, 30 day, 60 day, 90 day, to evaluate, hey, how are we doing? How's everybody feeling? Do we need to make some adjustments, just to get that other perspective? So I think that's valuable.
Yeah, that's wise. Huh. I hadn't really thought about specifically checking in, but yeah, I guess if you have maybe a more structured way of doing that, then
Yeah, I
give them
think,
a voice and let them speak into their perspective at home.
yeah, because it's important, it's valuable. And then once you do that, then you can start setting boundaries. And ultimately, it's where are you going to say yes to, where are you saying no to? And there are times where, you have to say yes and no to certain things, and, making sure that you're doing that at the right time.
Absolutely. Well, and even, giving your family a more specific voice into it gives them ownership of what is going on between if you're leaning harder into the business because there's a period of time you need to, and then if there's a season where you can go spend more family time.
Absolutely. And then also gives them the understanding of what's going on. So it's really easy, in the seasons where you have to lean in on the business, you're doing that, you're doing good work, and they don't really understand why that's needed or what's going on behind that. And having that communication level is important. And then also on the flip side, that, hey, I need to take care of some family stuff, and making sure that those in the business are taken care of. They understand the reasoning for that, because we all have those ebbs and flows where, okay, I have to take care of family things, and this is a priority right now, and making sure the business is aware of that. And then when you're leaning in on the business, make sure the family's aware of that situation as well.
Nice. And where did you learn that from? Did you just come with that on your own, or?
Maybe years of doing it the wrong way. So I've had to adjust and learn myself along the path.
So you're saying you have a gracious wife that
Yes, absolutely.
let you fail over and over again.
Absolutely.
Well, that's important. That's really good. What was maybe a defining challenge for you, and how'd you get through it? If you can think of an example.
Yeah, I think we talked about the COVID challenge. That was a real challenge, not only just with the drive-through, but just with everything, all the regulations changing constantly, how that impacted our operations, how that impacted our team, knowing that very often there was not a decision you can make that made everyone happy, that is going to upset some, because there were a lot of hot button issues we had to deal with, and how to navigate those waters was certainly a challenge. How I navigated that was to, through prayer, through counseling with others, both below me and both above me, to try to make the best decisions as we could. And then once again, encouraging the team, because it was a challenging time for the team to have so many changes coming at once. There were often times that we would come up with a game plan and work towards something, and then everything changed and we had to scrap all that work, start over. And that was, really frustrating for some, but just to encourage them that that's part of the process, and that was necessary, and the right thing to do.
And talking about the team, Chick-fil-A has a really strong recruiting model just because of the reputation you carry with high school and college students, so that you really tee yourself up for the cream of the crop. Did you have human resource challenges through this, as a lot of businesses are?
We did. We still have some challenges, not maybe as severe as other, businesses, but we're feeling it. I mean, I think for the first 9 years that we were open, we never actually had to actively recruit, because our employees recruited for us.
Right.
But that changed in the most current climate, and so we're working through that, and we're listening to our employees to see what matters to them, and finding ways to bring value to their job beyond just a working environment, which I think is important. We've got some pretty exciting things coming down the pipeline that I think will help with that. I haven't even announced this to the team yet, so I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're working on doing a thing where they'll get free college tuition.
Wow.
If they work with us, they'll have some hour requirements, but working with the university in Georgia that will allow us they'll do online courses. That's an accredited university, and basically they we're paying a fee, and then any employee who meets our qualifications will be able to get a 4-year degree if they choose with this accredited university, which I think, the opportunity for, someone to work at a Chick-fil-A and get a college degree debt-free, I think is pretty huge. So those are some of the things that we're looking at to try to meet the needs of people today.
That is amazing. So you can work fast food and work your way through college. I didn't know that was ever possible.
Yes, it's going to be possible very soon.
Wow. So there's this saying, I mean, it's chicken, but you can't soar with the eagles if you're running with the turkeys. But I guess it's chicken, so it doesn't apply.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay, good. That is amazing. Wow. They just blow my mind. Does any other fast food company in the industry do that?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's something that I'm pretty excited about, that I'm working in the other local Chick-fil-A operators are on board to do the same thing, it seems like. And so, yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity to, I think just the key and the heart behind that is I think it's essential anymore to create more value to our team beyond just their work environment, to pour into them as a person, to give them opportunities to grow as a person in different arenas, and just the opportunity to give them a college degree while they're working with us is going to benefit us, but then benefit the employee for sure.
Before you went there, I was going to ask you, how have you seen your investment in your workforce come full circle to benefit your organization? And then you took it to a whole nother level that I wasn't even ready for. But how have you seen that come, like as you've been sowing into your workforce, have you seen that come back to harvest for the organization?
Yeah, I think it's just, I think anymore the younger generation expects something different than different generations, and finding ways to, like I said, bring value to them. It comes at a cost, but I think it's worthwhile. You'll retain people differently. You'll attract different people too.
Yeah. Wow. I think you just made a lot of high school parents happy too. They're like, go work Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will be. I'm excited to watch it. Okay. Switching gears a little bit, what lessons have you learned that maybe you wish you learned a lot sooner in life?
In life or in business?
Okay. Let's do life first.
Life? Well, actually, they're pretty similar, I would say. One thing that I've learned is the importance of not only learning from your mistakes, but learning from others. I certainly made lots of mistakes, and I try to learn from them. It's essential to learn from them, but then just watching what other people are doing too, and learning good and bad from others is pretty impactful, to be able to say, okay, to evaluate what not only I'm doing, but evaluating what others around you are doing, and using that to enrich your processes. I think another thing that I wish I would have learned earlier on in business would be just the importance of the structures that we have that act as a foundation for the business, to have a solid systems and structures that provide a good backbone for your business. So then when things do change, you have those things that don't change that matter that people could cling to.
How long has Chick-fil-A been around?
Chick-fil-A as a corporation since 1947.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a lot older than I thought.
Yes.
Okay. So you've got quite a few years of experience to help build that backbone.
Yes.
That's nice. Plus, it sounds like you're even an innovator within Chick-fil-A and coaching others across the country on processes and how to do it better, because that pivot within a matter of days couldn't have come from corporate. It was so fast. You guys did that, right?
Yeah, and part of the situation came from corporate, part of it came from local people. So everyone, Chick-fil-A's across the country, we're all scrambling, doing different things and getting creative and learning from each other.
Okay.
And we have a network, and we can learn, hey, this person's doing this, let's try that.
So they facilitated collaboration as well.
They don't facilitate it, we do it on our own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have groups and ways to communicate and learn from each other as a collective group.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage. Awesome. Do you have any other maybe general comments you'd like to share or put out there? Or?
No, I'm just honored to be here and to be part of this, and thankful for your invite.
I am very honored that you would take some of your day to come by and share your story and hopefully be an encouragement and inspiration to others. Actually, one more question that I did have that I thought of for you was how does your faith play out at work? Because I think that can be an intimidating thought with like, I mean, we're in such a litigious society today and everybody's got feathers that can get ruffled really fast. How do you play out your faith in the workplace when people are going through tough times or you're coaching? Like, how do you keep a wall up there, or do you let that the conversation flow freely? How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's tricky, and it's becoming even trickier day by day, I think. I think first and foremost, it's important to realize or recognize that Chick-fil-A isn't a Christian organization. We're an organization that is based on Christian biblical principles, but we're not a Christian organization. So you don't have to be a Christian to own one. You don't have to be Christian to work there. That being said, I am a believer, and it's hard for me to separate that from who I am at home and at church and at work. And so I have to find the right balance of or opportunity to handle that appropriately. So finding the way to be who I am, to bring my faith to work, but then be cognizant of the fact that not everyone shares those beliefs is tricky. So, for example, we had an event a couple weeks ago, a daddy-daughter date night. And one thing that I've always done before that was with our, we have a team of people who help with that. And then we have servers. We kind of redecorate the restaurant to look like a fine dining restaurant. It's really fun. They have, tableside service and menus. And so before the event, we always have a prayer. And for those involved, and we pray for the event, we pray for the dads and daughters because it's a special moment. We pray that's impactful to them. We make that completely optional. And so I make it very clear that, I'm going to be praying for this event. If you feel comfortable joining, you're welcome to join, but you're not required to, and it's not going to be held against you if you don't want to for any reason whatsoever. So I think we have to be careful to make sure that, we're accommodating to those who believe differently than us, but then also not changing who we are. We have a thing called Vision and Values dinner that we invite employees to. We try to do it once a month, but we haven't been able to do that regularly lately, so we're trying to catch up right now. And we invite employees to our house to have a dinner, pay them to be there for 2 hours. We cook food for them, and then I share my story with them. And part of my story, as you've heard, is, rooted in my faith. I can't separate the two very easily. Yeah. And so I share that with them there, share them my faith journey. Oftentimes tell them about, how I found Jesus and how I live that out today. And I make it clear to them that I'm not, I'm just sharing my story because that's part of who I am and part of my lens on how I lead the business. And so I think it's important for them to understand that. But yeah, we just have to be aware that not everyone believes the same way. Mm-hmm. And we have an opportunity to positively impact those and to walk that fine line every day.
Yeah. And I just hear a high level of leaning into grace and everybody's free will.
Sure.
And, still making it a safe, peaceful, open space for everybody involved.
Right.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay. Thanks for sharing that part too, because
I feel
like there are some key elements in there that, even as I'm considering how I formulate our culture here, how do I walk that fine line? Because, I can't, necessarily be prejudiced on like how people believe or anything like that. And it's just got to be open. So thank you, Jason, for coming on to Real Wealth Podcast, sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning, where we help people make wise financial decisions. I certainly wish you a fantastic year of chicken.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here.
All right. Thanks so much.